We are so excited. This is our fourth and final? It's our final parent coffee of the season, and this one is on athletic recruiting, so we have a great team of presenters for you today. We're really excited about that. Just to kind of get a sense of who we have in the room. Upper school parents, just raise your hands. Perfect. That looks like almost everyone. Any middle school parents? Okay, me too. Anybody else? Okay, great. Well, for those of you who have not yet been to one of our presentations, we have a lovely agenda, pretty concise for you today. We're going to have a variety of different speakers talking about a couple of different topics in around athletic recruiting. If you are not familiar with who we are, this is what we call your home team. Up here on the screen, this is a group of people from the athletics department and then the 3 college counselors, and we work really, really closely together as a team when it comes to the athletic recruiting process. We meet pretty regularly, I think twice a month, to talk about our athletes and to discuss kind of changes in college athletics and different changes in recruitment that we are seeing. So just know that we have our finger on the pulse of all of this, and you have a great resource here at Columbus Academy to kind of help your athlete through this process. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Jason Singleton, who's going to start by talking a lot about the value of athletics in college.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Good morning. I think I recognize pretty much all the faces here. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, again, I'm the athletic director, and I am from Detroit, Michigan, originally. I went to a Catholic school pretty much all my life, and I started playing sports because my friends were going and trying out for the teams. That's how I ended up playing basketball. I started off playing football, played baseball, and then my friends were trying out for the basketball team. I said, hey, I'll go. And somehow I made the team, and I wasn't very good. I was very hyper and athletic, so that helped. And I remember my first game, I didn't play very much. The team was getting beat pretty badly. The coach finally put me in, and I was just all over the place, diving for loose balls, and the coach was like, that's what I want right there. And then from that point on, I was a starter, and just kept getting better and better and better. This was 5th grade, and then in the 7th grade, I got my first dunk in the game. So once I had my first dunk, that just kind of put me on the radar of all the high schools. And then in 8th grade, I got my first letter from Michigan State, from Tom Izzo. He was an assistant coach at the time, and I got a letter from him. And then at that point, my mom, she knew that, okay, my son is going to play in college. I went on to high school. I think my sophomore year, won the state championship, and the recruiting really took off for me. Lots of colleges were reaching out to me, and then I ended up at Ohio State, the Ohio State University. My senior year was we went to the Final Four, and then I played overseas professionally. From there, I came back home, I went back to school, got my master's degree from Central Michigan, and then I decided that I wanted to go out into the real world, and started teaching, worked at the NCAA, and went to Ohio State, and then now I'm here. So I've been truly blessed that athletics has opened up so many doors for me, and athletics and basketball, I think, kind of gave me some vision and drive to figure out kind of what I want to do with myself, and I knew I wanted to be in athletics. And as you can see, some of these things on here have helped me, with leadership development, time management. Time management is a really big piece for athletes when they're trying to figure out practice times, studying for exams, all those things, make them a better student, and it gives them more discipline. Also, lifetime fitness. I used to play until I tore my Achilles, and I'm done now. But for a lot of the sports, from tennis to golf to a lot of sports you can play for the rest of your life, swimming. And then socially, athletics is so important. I went to bowling the other night, and I had a couple of parents tell me how happy they are that their child found bowling, because they found a safe space, they found some friends and people who they can relate to, and it's been such a good experience for their kid. So socially, sometimes putting them on a team sport is really good just so they can make more friends and just interact with others. But athletics has been great for me, and I think that for your child, athletics is very important for their development, and it can also help them get into some colleges and some schools that they may not have been able to get into. I was a solid student, but I may not have been able to get into Ohio State if it wasn't for sports and basketball. So that's very important, and it could be a significant hook for recruitment. I'm going to pass it on to Jackie. She's going to talk a little bit about the NCAA, the different divisions and some of the rules, and then I'll be back up for some more.
Good morning. I'm Jackie DeMarco, Assistant Athletics Director. A little bit about me. I played college field hockey at Colgate University, and then after that I wanted to get into the world of college athletics, so I worked in various Division IIIs and one Division I as a field hockey coach. Most recently I was at Kenyon College for 9 years. So I've been on the other side. I have 15 years of that experience. So very different sports. Our sports are all different, and your recruiting timeline and differences in all the sports is very different. But I do have some good experience there that I'm hoping to help share and with this team right here. A little bit about the NCAA and just the basics on athletics in college. We have the NCAA. There are 3 divisions. Division 1 and 2, they must complete the NCAA Eligibility Center forms. I'll get into that a little bit later. Division 3, which is the biggest division, as well as where we send most of our student athletes that go and play. That's the biggest division there. And then we have the NAIA. It's a smaller, other national governing body. We don't have a lot of kids that play in that body, but it's part of college athletics, so we wanted to make sure we mentioned it. Then there's also the opportunity for intramurals and clubs, and so that would be, once your kid would get to school, or even just as they are accepted, you want to try to see where they could fit in athletics. And then the other thing that we do want to mention is that there's been a lot of changes for the NCAA, and before next year, if you went to junior college, your eligibility clock starts there. Now, they have kind of forgiven that. So, junior college does not count as your eligibility for NCAA. Now, we don't really send a lot of our students to junior colleges, but it's something that we wanted to mention because it's part of the changing landscape of college athletics. And then the portal, I don't know if you've just watched the news with any kind of sports, like college sports, it's kind of like the wild, wild west. So it's an athletic contract now, it's not even a national letter of intent, and it can change and it can be offered, and kids can just jump in the portal and switch schools without really any consequence. But that's just a little tidbit. We don't need to really get into that a whole lot. We can talk about it at tables if you need to, but that's just a little bit about the basics of college athletics. Thank you. All right, I did want to throw this up here. I know this is a really small graphic. You will have this later too, but this is the changing that's happening with NCAA scholarship limits. So I don't know if you've heard about, this is all D1. The NCAA was sued, and so they came back and said, all right, we're going to give basically a max of scholarships for all the sports that are covered, instead of saying we're going to limit scholarships. Now that means that they just pushed it back to the schools and said, you can decide if you're going to fully fund a sport. And the hard thing about that is, for the schools, is that it may look like they have all these scholarships, but they don't. And especially, they can't fund all of that. So for instance, in the sport like field hockey, before next year, field hockey had, I think it was 12 full scholarships that you could pay, that you could give us. That's called fully funded. All all right? But in field hockey, you were also able to cut up those scholarships. So you get like a 30% scholarship, and then they try to package it with all these different things, right? Now, they're saying field hockey can have, I think it's 27, maybe? Well, they're not, where are they gonna find all that money, right? So it's still gonna be maybe 12 scholarships, but they're cutting them up. But then in a sport like football is different in the way the NCAA had it. It was either you were fully on scholarship or you fully were not. So football had kids that, they had 85 full scholarships. Now they're saying you can have 105 full scholarships, but it cuts away from people that would maybe walk on, because it's a roster cap, it's a roster limit for that sport. So although it looks like fees are going up, there's increases, it's just a little bit harder to navigate for everyone. So what the key points are is that yes, the limits have increased, but most schools won't be able to fully fund the sport. And it is more important than ever for you to own your process and for you to ask questions and make sure that you research each school and ask questions. And check it out. If there's a school that like kids are just jumping in the transfer portal, that might not be a very stable place for you. But it might be what you want your journey to be. So this is what I was talking about with the NCAA recruits. This is the eligibility center. This is what it will look like when you have to create an account. And when you're done, it will send a notification to college counseling. And then you also have to pay. So you'll know you're done when you pay for it. And then we just want to highlight, these are our current alums playing at the Division I level. We've got a lot of great student athletes up there. But yeah, we have some very recent ones as well from last year. And then we also have, like I said earlier, we have a lot of student athletes playing currently at the Division III level, and these are just the sports and the colleges that they're currently playing at.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jackie. And just at the end of the presentation, Jackie did print out these information about all of the different divisions in the NCAA, and so we'll pass this out for everybody at the end here. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit just about recruiting and the how this happens. So we've learned a little bit about big picture, about the value of athletics, a little bit about how it works, and then now we're going to start the presentation drilling down on specific kids. So what I want to tell you is that this is, as parents, and I'm going to try and speak to you as parents, is that this is really hard. A lot of you have children who've been strong athletes, and you're sitting on the side of the game, and other parents are saying, oh, your child should go D1, your child is the best ever. Or in 6th or 7th or 8th grade, they just had a breakout season, and you're thinking, oh my goodness, this is gonna translate to something big later on. And really what happens is that recruiting is a process, and it will happen kind of over time. And what we want to let you all know is that there are outside many perspectives that you will get on your child and on their athletic performance, on their ability, and then ultimately it's up to a college coach to decide how much they want your child or how good they are. We want to provide you some examples of the outside perspectives that we see as sort of most important. And one, outside coaches. So outside coaches, if you think about it in this way, families are paying them money, are paying outside coaches money to help support their child in club sports and all of these ways. But they have their own aims. They make money by having successfully placed students in colleges and universities, and they are really intent on that, and they may not be thinking about the whole child. So we want you to be aware of what our job is, and part of the partnership in college counseling and athletics is thinking about fit and match. And that means athletic and academic, social development, what's a good environment for the kid to grow in. We think that the school personnel, school coaches, and the college counselors are going to remind you a lot of that balance and what's important in that. And by the way, school coaches here really have no, for them there's no skin in the game about the like absolute what the list is going to be. Their job is not dependent on that. So we find that the high school coaches often give the best and most realistic assessment of where the students are and what they might be able to do. We think they're wonderful resources for families to help them along the way, and that they are often great sources, especially early on, to help you on how to read the sport, what are next steps, what you need to do to get recognized at this next level. And students and parents, we find that they fall in one of two categories often. That they are underselling their child, that they don't see how good they are. They're the kind of parents that always say, you could have done better. You didn't play as well as you should. You're not going to have a chance to play at the next level. And then there are often folks that have maybe more of an exaggerated sense of the strength of their student athlete. And it's important to know where you fall. And I think it's very easy for us, and this is what we're hardwired to do, is see the strengths of our own children. And so I think it's really important to recognize that. When I'm watching games, I'm watching my child the most. And I'm sure most of you are as well. That's just the way, that's human nature. Your child is your primary source there, so just being aware of that. Okay, so really in terms of the recruiting timeline, every single sport is different. Everyone has a different timeline. But if you were sitting here thinking, okay, this is what, I'm interested in athletics. Actually, I should change that. Not I'm interested in athletics. My child is interested in athletics, because there is a real different view of this. You may love watching your child play and really think they're going to be fantastic at that next level, but really don't. This has got to be about your child's interest in this. And so we are going to encourage them to start having those, adult conversations, asking coaches about what they should do if they want to play at the next level. How does this work? They want to start building their network there. And this is really just a flash up, and we'll send these slides afterwards to you all so that you all have some information about that. And so, what we would encourage you to think about if you're sitting here with your younger students is have them go to the coach. I'd love to play college lacrosse. What do you think of my ability? Where would I need to improve? At this stage, what NCAA level do you think I could aspire to? So, those are very sort of questions that you can ask and empower your children to ask. Because a lot of this is about, this is why we put students first here, the student engagement in this. Okay, so about recruiting, and this is information that I think parents can do a lot of research on. There's a real difference between the clock sports, which are really easy to figure out, swimming, track and field, cross country, where do I fit in? You look up here and you can see a kid that might be a great recruit at Sewanee will not get, for swimming, may not be even, Kenya may not even be interested in them. So you have to look and find out what those schools are. And the clock sports are very easy to figure out. There are things called Swim Cloud. There are all kinds of ways that kids can find that out. But what you want to know is that basically you should look and see, and start, you can help by starting to sort of research this for your students. We've talked about this earlier, or we'll talk about it a little bit later, but some of this stuff you look and see, gosh, you know, every player is an international player. So maybe that's men's tennis. We looked it up the roster the other day. You're not going to be able to, your child is probably not going to have a spot on that team just based on what the roster looks like. And this is a detailed part of this recruiting early questions to ask, because it's not clear. A Division III program actually may be more competitive than a Division I program. There's some nuances in this. And what you'll be looking at early on is basically, you know, am I good enough? What do I need to know? Maybe if I look at the information that we have in the school about the college roster, is everyone on the roster 6'1" and above, and your child is 5'5"? I mean, you know, what are the chances that this will work out? I mentioned this, which is where do I stand? This is again, the swim cloud that I mentioned, early questions to ask. You will see here that you can look and see if my child swims 5350 in the free, 100 free, that child probably will be a great recruit only. And you can see that in that way. For the other sports, you're as good as a college coach thinks you are. So it's really important to know that. And so it's how much that college coach would want you, and a little bit what Jason talked about those maybe the hustle and the intangible skills. Some college will really want kids for that. We do have very successful recruiting here, and Jen is going to talk a little bit more about how we dive into the research of that.
Thanks, Darnell. Okay, so I want to give you some advice about what you can do as a parent, sort of behind the scenes, if you want to dig into this. And you can do it with your child, or you can just do it on your own. But I want to encourage you to do some of what Darnell just talked about, looking at rosters and looking for patterns. So let's use examples. I think better examples. Lacrosse. If you are the parent of a girls lacrosse player and you're looking at a roster and every player is from Maryland to Virginia, and they don't have one kid on that team from Ohio in the last 4 years, odds are your child won't be the first one, right? Darnell talked about size. I want to also talk about position. If you have a goalie and that team has 5 goalies, odds are they don't need one. These are just easy things that you can see. Tennis, if it's full of international players, that's not unusual at the D1 level. But just start going through some rosters. If you're not sure where to start, I would encourage you, and I would write this down, there are some conferences that you can look at. Locally, there's a conference called the NCAC, the North Coast Athletic Conference. That's Denison, Kenyon, lots of great schools in this area. I would also look at NESCAC, the New England Small College Association, and then the Patriot Leagues, that's a small D1. So if you just want a reference point to start looking at rosters, that's where I would start. You want to figure out what do they have, what do they need, and again, if you're looking at track and swimming, look at the time in the conference meet. Don't just look up some random meet. And you also want to figure out if you are the parent of an 8th or a 9th grader, those times, you don't want to use that 9th grade time. Coaches are going to look a little bit later. They want to see, especially girls, after your body has matured a little bit, they want to see that you're still running those times. I want to talk about the next step that you can do with your child. This is typically in the sophomore year, end of the sophomore year, and you can talk about this with a college counselor. Sophomores will have a meeting with a college counselor, and if athletic recruiting is something that you're talking about in your family, please self-identify when you meet with your college counselor, with one of the college counselors in April. The athletic questionnaires is how you get into a recruiting database, and we're going to show you an example. So I think the biggest misnomer out there is that, oh, I want to play sports, I should just sit down and start emailing coaches. Don't do that. That email is going to land in an inbox and it's going to be deleted because they don't know who you are. So an athletic questionnaire, before I get into it, this is something that we talk about all the time in my house. I'm married to a Division III college coach who works at Denison, and so Some of you have heard me tell this story. We have the most uninteresting pillow talk in all of America. All we talk about is college admissions and athletic recruiting, and I fall asleep learning about this stuff. So athletic questionnaires are so important because if a coach moves, if a coach leaves that institution and you've just emailed, you're gone. An athletic questionnaire will gather information from your student that you might forget to put in an email, like how tall are you? If you're a baseball player, what position? Are you lefty or righty? What's your time from home to first? I think there's an actual term for that, but I'm not a big Jason, what is that? I've seen it on baseball questionnaires, but they ask all kinds of things that we try to figure out. That information on the questionnaire, you have to do that in advance because the coaches will take that. Then once you're in a database, a coach can filter that to the correct coach. So I see Robin Miller's here from football. The football questionnaire that you fill out, some coaches, some staffs will say, oh, we have geographic recruiting. I have a Midwestern recruiter. That child who filled out the questionnaires from Ohio, it's going to go to the Ohio recruiter, and some do it by position. Okay, so here's what a questionnaire looked like. We chose an example. This is Trinity College. So if you're out there saying, I'd really love to play squash at Trinity, I'm going to go to the Trinity Athletics website. I'm going to find the women's squash team, and after you click on squash, you'll see something that says recruits. And if you click on recruits, then you see the questionnaire. So this is what we're talking about. You'll know you're in the right place. It's going to start asking for a name and address and all kinds of information. If they ask for SAT or ACT score, you don't have to fill that out. Most of your kids are still taking it. Just fill out the necessary information. One of the things they're going to ask about inevitably is social media. Do you have a link? Do you have Huddle? Do you have, in football, Twitter is very big, but it depends on the sport. You want to be ready to do that with your child. This is something kids need help with. The executive function piece of this is so big. I wouldn't do it all for your child. I would have them be invested in this, but I would sit down with them and do this. Okay, so some research and technology to-dos. Huddle, you've heard me talk about Huddle. We have a very robust Huddle program here. If you nod your head if you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so you can, your child can work with a coach to do highlight. Kids are great at this actually. Social media, you can look at some great examples. Our kids are pretty good at this. They're going to use it for recruiting, but that means they've got to clean it up first. So they shouldn't be putting stuff on there. If you don't want Aunt Sally to read it, if you would be embarrassed, then it shouldn't be on your social media. There are lots of good recruiting websites and apps, and there are ones that try to take you for every dollar that you're worth. So NCSA is probably the most popular. NCSA, there is a free version. I would use the free version and nothing else. So NCSA will hound you. They will call you. I know parents in this room have been called and hounded. You know, oh, if you pay us $800, you're going to have access to much more. You won't. The college coaches pay for this. They pay to have access to every child who puts their information there. Different sports use their own recruiting websites. This is why I would encourage you to talk to your coaches, both here and at the club level. I know there are different ones for lacrosse, and there are different things that different sports will do. We want to talk about ID camps. So soccer, this is a big thing in soccer. How do you know if it's an actual ID camp or if it's just we need to make some money for our program? If 450 people are invited, it's not an actual ID camp. They are making money for their program. If you are one of 50 kids invited and they tell you this is how we choose our roster spots, then that's an actual ID camp. Junior visit days. Junior visit days are wildly popular in lacrosse, for example. They're very popular in football. In some sports, they have you come and actually play with other recruits. They will watch and see how you're doing among the best of the best to decide who they're going to make an offer to. And in football, they'll have, in the summer, they'll have some of these camps where they have you come. There are multiple colleges there. These are great ways for exposure. We want to talk about the art of self-recruitment and putting yourself out there. So doing these questionnaires is how you self-identify to a college. I found you, I'm interested in you. I'm not waiting for you to find me. I think this is probably the biggest urban myth out there is that, oh, everybody finds me. If you are Jason Singleton and you can dunk a ball in 7th grade, they will find you. If you can't dunk a ball, like most of us in 7th grade, they won't find you. You need to self-identify. If you you are not on the varsity roster by your junior year, if you're not being recognized as all district, all league, all state, then you start to say, is there a place for me, or am I maybe going to be a club player? So we want to be very careful about promising that every kid can play at the college level, because, why couldn't I just play at Division III? You just need to know some of these Division III programs are very selective in who they take, and there are some where they need people to fill the roster. That's going to be different at every school. You can look at their record from the previous year. If they went 0-12, they might need you. But if they went 12-0, maybe not. And I'm turning it over to Carla.
Awesome, thank you. So this is just kind of, the next couple of slides are a little bit more of a recap, but thinking about the three kind of main overarching things we want you to be aware of and to recognize in this recruitment process. Certainly that it is so individualized, and it does vary so much, not only by sport, but by student. And you should be thinking about how to get your student exposure, if that's what they want, or the experience that they need. For example, if you are a basketball player in AAU, if you are club soccer, we talked about those club soccer and club lacrosse, those experiences and opportunities are huge. If you're a tennis player, you need to be playing tournaments and getting that UTR up. That's how you're going to start to get recognized. So that's that first piece. Jen talked a lot about learning how to tell your story, and kids they're so interesting, and they're spectacularly not good at telling their own story, especially when they're younger. And so kind of getting that self-promotion piece out there, but also recognizing that it may not happen right away. Maybe it's something that takes a little bit longer. Maybe you have a standout year as a junior, and that's when everything starts kind of lighting up for you. So again, it's not only promoting yourself and getting yourself out there, but it's also a little bit of patience involved in that piece as well. Just to put in another plug for any of you who have either 9th grade or 10th grade students, in the sophomore year in the spring, we as college counselors meet with each family for about 20 minutes. If your child is thinking about college athletics, that's a great time to kind of bring that up. So I just wanted to put that plug back in there. And then lastly, you have to think of this as early decisions. So coaches are really looking to fill their rosters. They want sure bets. They want to know when things are all settled and done. So you have to think about if a coach is wanting you and they're offering you that spot, they're going to probably ask you to apply early decision. Not probably. They're going to ask you to apply early decision if their school offers early decision, and you have to be ready to kind of make that commitment. Okay, and then some questions to think about, some things that Jason talked about, kind of using sports to leverage your admission. That's a wonderful kind of thing to be thinking about, but you have to also want to play that sport in college. There is that component of this is going to be part of your experience, so understanding how that's going to impact that experience. Again, kind of talking with your coaches about which division might be best for you, and understanding that even in Division I, Division III might be a more competitive program. So thinking about not only division, but the specific schools that you're looking into. And then also thinking about what you want your collegiate athletic experience to look like. Do you want playing time? How much playing time do you want? Are you really eager just to get out there and be a member of the team, or do you want to be on the court or on the field and have significant playing time? So those are things we really want you to be thinking about. And we also just want to remind you that if your child is talking to you about this, we want you to encourage it. We really want you to come and chat with us and encourage this process so that we can kind of get the ball rolling for you. Okay, so here we go. This is wrapping us up. Darnell Haywood.
Okay. Good. Well, so we'll leave some of these things up here, but I sort of want to think about things that we haven't talked about. Sort of the benefits of Columbus Academy is that we are a smaller school. We know our kids well. We know our coaches. So you will find us routinely talking with coaches about kids, meeting with kids and coaches at the same time. And I think every season, all of the college counselors have that way. Jen and Carla are both coaches. I have a son who is playing athletics in college. We all are really invested in this and know a lot about it. What we think that the school offers here is a lot of information about the sport and also about the admissions process. And we want to let you know, just because a college coach may be recruiting you or because your kid can play at a certain level, the admissions office may not accept them because of an academic record. It's just, there's a whole separate process. So a child is not actually admitted to a school until admissions has read their applications and made a decision on it. The athletic recruiting process, in our experience, is a roller coaster ride. We have been in this for a long time, and a kid can start out not having much attention at all, then something can come through, a program can go through a change, and they can lose all of the recruit and energy and momentum they have one year, and then the next year they're hot. So one kid may get in, one year who you say, my child's better than that child. What? They didn't get in. And I'll use this example. I was telling this to Jason just yesterday with my son on the basketball team. They're new coaches at my son's basketball program. They're building up the team. And the coach said to my son, Charlie, by the time we're good enough to recruit a really good center, you're going to have graduated. And it wasn't meant to be mean. He plays center, and he's kind of saying, you're not that great. But, you know, by the time we're able to recruit a really good one, you'll be gone. And so he kind of got in on the floor on a school that wasn't having a very successful basketball program, and then the coach is rising it to new levels. So there are ebbs and flows in how schools and programs operate. What I would tell you is that regardless of how this works out for your child, there is so much learning that can happen in this, in putting yourself out there, in saying, this is what I want to do. And I would also share that there's some serendipity in some of this in the process. When you visit schools, and that's what sophomore, junior, like towards the end of sophomore year, walk by, see who's there in terms of coaches, talk to people, find out a little bit more of the program. Tell your story. Believe in the opportunities that you and your child have in the face of sort of knowing all of this about the process, because you have the one opportunity to tell your story on the college level, and this is where it can happen. So we encourage you to sort of dig into those dreams and help your child believe that at the same time that you know a little bit more about the backside of this. Jen and Carla,
A couple things, and I want to remind people, cast a wide net.
yes.
Cast a wide net in all divisions, cast a wide net in terms of level of the school athletics, level of admission selectivity. I'm going to put Robin on the spot because I just texted him, he's in the back of the room. Come on down, Robin Miller, Price is Right. You guys know the show. Robin just reminded me of something, and I'm not going to take credit for his good idea, but we want to talk a little bit about social media, why it's important to clean it up, and why you want to remind your kids about the choices they make, because I want Robin to tell you some of the questions that college coaches ask him.
I get asked, coaches can easily look at like the film or their times or their scores and their height and their weight, and that's, of course, it's important, but when they finish, when the kid goes back to class, they visit with me and they ask all about the character and the work ethic and what are they like in the classroom, what would other teachers say about them, what are they like in the community, what are they like when no one's watching, how do they treat their younger teammates, so all those kind of intangible things and soft skills. Again, they need to be a certain height or weight, they need to have good film, but coaches more and more these days care about that other stuff, so it's super important. And just to be a good person all the time, because it doesn't matter how good you are if you're a jerk, these schools are not going to recruit you.
Thanks for letting us put you on the spot. You didn't have a choice. We want to encourage you to ask questions about financial aid, and just to remember that rumors aren't facts. So when you hear your neighbor say, my neighbor, they got a full ride, athletic ride, and you say the name of a Division III school, they didn't. There's no such thing as a full ride athletically to a D3 school. They can offer you merit money the same way they would to any other student, but you need to know there are actually rules out there about this, and we could get into the semantics, I won't, but colleges are investigated about this. Their average merit aid package must be the same to athletes and non-athletes. They are investigated every year. They don't want to lose their federal funding, so they're not going to play around with this. Follow-up emails after the questionnaire. So that's something I forgot about. We said doing the questionnaire first and then follow-up emails. We'll help kids with this. But in a follow-up email, you might say to a coach, Hi, I filled out the questionnaire last month. I haven't heard back from you, but my family and I would like to visit some colleges. We'd love to visit yours. Should I arrange that through you? Should I arrange that through the admissions office? Is there a day and time you might be available? My coach husband would want me to tell you, think about when they're in season and you're in season, that's very hard. So if you are asking a track coach to meet you on a spring Saturday afternoon, they're thinking, does this kid know what they're talking about? That's when the track meets are. So you want to look at the college's calendar to see when they have games or meets or those sorts of things and time it up. They'll meet you, but you want to think ahead about these sort of things. Follow-up emails can also say things like, hi coach, I think I'm really interested. At this point, would you like to see my transcript? Ask about this early on. You want to know if you are on that academic level and just put yourself out there, right? And does that make sense?
Yeah.
And there was one other thing, and I forgot it. We're all on a lot of cold medicine in the college counseling office. Jason, Jackie, anything? Don't shake our hands if you don't want to.
And so I will also say, I'm going to piggyback a little bit about Jen was saying with emails. It's really important once you fill out that questionnaire, in the subject of the email, put your class, put any kind of academic information that you can have. So it could be like 2027, 3.9 GPA, so that the and then respond to that email chain as you go through it, because it will go to the bottom of the list, then it'll come back up, and the coach will see it. And I know Jen mentioned, don't worry about test scores when you're filling out these questionnaires, because a lot of your students haven't taken them. It is also important that once you start to have that relationship with the coach, to ask them if you should submit your test scores on the questionnaire. Because that questionnaire sometimes, with some schools, and it's not every single school, but in high academic institutions, sometimes that questionnaire feeds right to admissions. And test scores can be great, but test scores can also not help sometimes. And there are some schools that test scores are optional. And these three right here are going to be the ones to really help you with that and the understanding of that and what you need to do. So I just have found that was, for me personally at Kenyon, I would talk to the student after we got down the road of like, hey, let's submit your test scores, or let's wait on it. So you're gonna let Jason talk, and then do you want?
I just had a quick question about that, because
Sure.
they filled out the questionnaires already before they have test scores.
Yeah.
Can you go back and literally update the same questionnaire? Or
No, Don't do that. It'll get into there. That's an email to a coach. That's a reason to email a coach. But I would say talk with the college housing office before you send scores to any coach or college.
Yeah, that's very important, I would say.
So your child or children, they're going to do a lot of work on the field or in the pool, whatever sport they are. But there's also, it needs to be a lot of work from you all, like a lot of work, and you have to really research the sport and understand the nuances of every single sport, because every sport is different on how they recruit. Tennis is different from swimming, wrestling, basketball, baseball. I mean, baseball, volleyball. They're all so different, and you have to understand the recruiting. In some sports, girls soccer, girls lacrosse, they start recruiting earlier. So you have to understand that as well, and you have to do a lot of research. If you're on a club teams are really important, but sometimes the club coaches can really sell you a dream. So you have to really understand your child's ability, but you have to research the sport. And you can't rely on the club coach, you can't rely on a scouting service, you can't rely on other people to get your kid a scholarship. You're going to have to do all the legwork. You have to do a lot of legwork. And the biggest thing is understanding that sport. If you're on a club and you're in the 8th grade or 9th grade, talk to other parents who are at these tournaments and ask them about the recruiting. Ask them about how they're, if they've already committed, if they're already going to college, ask them how it was done. A lot of parents will tell you everything, will share all the horror stories. They'll tell you what showcase to go to, which ones not to go to, which ones are money grabs. There's a lot of people out there who will look at you all, look at our school, and they'll take advantage of us and take advantage of you and just want your money. But you wonder at the end why you can't get to the school you want to get to. You have to do a lot of research, and feel free to reach out to our staff and reach out to us, and we'll help you. We'll sit down one-on-one and give you all the information that you need. But a lot of the work's going to be from you all.
Great, just a few little last things to mention. We'll all kind of wrap up a little bit. One, we talk a lot about the recruiting questionnaire. If you come to my office and say, I want to fill out the recruiting questionnaire for Clemson for football, there's not a recruiting questionnaire. Clemson finds you. So it's important to know that although that's something that's really big and important, other big programs will find you. Another really big important thing is basically, do you love, or does your child see the fit at the school they're going to academically and socially? There's both the fact of what if they broke their leg and they weren't playing the sport? How would they feel at the school? It's called the broken leg test. I also think for kids in this process, and this is where parents and college counselors can help, some of them may be so excited about their sport, and this happened to my son. He said, the Springfield College coach called me, I want to go there. But look, 50% of the students are online. That wasn't a good fit for him, but he was just so excited to play somewhere. And Mrs. Fitz, as the college counselor, said, you know what, actually, I think there are better fits out there. Let's wait and see what happens. And so you really want to be aware of what the overall environment is. I also want to let you know, and this can be kind of hard in a small community like this, there are certain sports that are much harder to get recruited for. So golf is an example. There is a very short golf roster. You can be a really good golf player and have gotten all the awards in high school and all of the best athletes award in the school, and you may not have the opportunity to play at the next level. You may be a state championship winner in high school and not have the opportunity. And that's just something that you need to be aware of about the sport that your child plays.
Okay, we're going to end with this and then we'll stick around for questions. I want to talk about encouraging your child to think about how they're communicating with coaches. Coaches move around a lot, and I'm going to tell you about my friend Coach Sean. Coach Sean was the men's basketball coach at Hiram College. Hiram College they were struggling. They were struggling academically, they were struggling athletically when he was there. He's a really good coach. And he would call kids, he'd have these calls, and he said, I took notes because he knew that he would be moving. He was a very good coach, he knew he'd be moving up. And he said, I kept notes of the kids who I had really positive relationships with and ones I didn't. Coach Sean moved from Hiram to Case Western Reserve University. Guess what he did with that list of kids who weren't very nice? He stopped recruiting them. They showed their character in those phone calls. As your kids are getting interest from schools, always take the call. Always practice your phone call, practice your recruiting, talk with those coaches. You never know where a coach is going to end up year to year. This business, they move around a ton. They go from different levels. I had coaches I was friends with when I worked at Allegheny. That 1 year they were at Allegheny, the next year they were the defensive coordinator at Lehigh. This is just how it goes. Think about your character piece, like Robin talked about. Coaches like to be wooed in the same way that your kids like to be wooed. They like you to show interest in their school. It's a two-way street as far as that goes. So we want to say thanks for coming. You can give our colleagues a round of applause. I think they did a really good job. And let's stick around for questions, okay? Thank you so much.